Of power, when you look at history, the first thing that dictators do is shut down the press. And I'm not saying that President Trump is trying to be a dictator. I'm just saying we need to learn the lessons of history.
Joining us now, Susan Glasser, Chief International Affairs columnist for Politico and co-author of the book Kremlin Rising, Vladimir Putin's Russia and the End of the Revolution. And back with us, Anna Marie Cox. Susan, you've covered Vladimir Putin close up. Did he ever say that the press was the enemy of the Russian people?
Well, you know, it's funny. That was really pretty much Vladimir Putin's very first move in office was to retake power over the media. The state TV had always been the biggest force in Soviet Russia. In independent Russia, they had a brief period where people were allowed to say what they wanted on the air, and TV was the big, important media. And the very first thing he did in his first year in office was take over the TV stations. It's a pretty good playbook. Now, of course, you don't want to go too far in the parallels between Trump's America and Putin's Russia, but I think this is something that is a playbook out of almost every authoritarian leader today, including in Turkey, for example, where the same thing is happening right now.
Let's listen to what Trump said on Saturday at his rally in Florida about the fake news and ignoring them.
We are not going to let the fake news tell us what to do, how to live, or what to believe. We are free and independent people, and we will make our own choices.
So, Anna, this begins, of course, with misstating the case, lying that the news media is trying to tell us what to do.
Right.
Well, you're not going to tell me what to do, right? So that he gets that reflex right away. Tell us how to live. They're not telling you how to live. No one's doing that. But that's one of the elements of whipping up this hysteria against the media.
Right. He's stoking resentment very specifically. And I was actually going to say, with that lead quote from McCain, where he said the first thing dictators do is stop the free press. The first thing they do is delegitimize it. The first thing they do is exactly what he's doing now, which is to turn people against it, to make them doubt it. And again, like, what's actually really frustrating is it's not in the service of even telling some greater truth. It's just to get people confused and have them doubt everything. A colleague of mine said, confusion is an authoritarian tool. If you can get people confused, if you can get them doubting what's real, you can tell them anything. And that I feel like is what's happening right now.
Yeah, that's a great description. Susan, how do you think Vladimir Putin is seeing what's happening in the United States? Do you think he imagined that what's happening here now was ever possible, that you could have a president who was declaring the press to be the enemy of the American people and telling people that it's all lies, everything the American media says? That's something Vladimir Putin has been trying to convince the world of.
You know, that phrase, enemy of the American people, is just such a stunning phrase to anybody who spent any time in Russia. Enemy of the people was literally the sentence and the exact term used to condemn people by Stalin to the Gulag and to death. And in fact, you can't even utter that phrase in Russia today without it having that very specific connotation. To see that used in an American context, even by the standards of Trump's over-the-top rhetoric, I really did a huge double take the other day. And it's something that's so far outside of the pale. And remember, right now, this is in a context in Russia where, of course, Putin didn't expect that he would be living in a world with Donald Trump as president. None of us expected it. But I go back to Anna Marie's word, confusion. I think that regardless of what the Russians thought they were doing in the election, one of the things that was their goal was confusion, to the extent that they had a program of supporting Donald Trump in the presidential election. They certainly didn't expect that it would succeed, but I do think that they expected that they could successfully confuse us, undermine legitimacy of our institutions. What's such a stunner is just the notion that right now it's Donald Trump who's undermining the legitimacy of our institutions as much as it is any Russians. And that, again, is sort of my point. You don't need to look at the conspiracy between Putin and Trump because we don't really know what that's about. Just look at what Trump is actually doing, which is undermining these institutions of our system.
Susan, as soon as you figure out what's going on with Putin and Trump, please come back and let us know what that's all about. Susan Glasser and Anna Marie Cox, thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it.